Call Sunday School. I'm so happy that you're joining us again this week. This Sunday, November 29th, is our first Sunday of Advent, so we start celebrating the Advent season this Sunday in church. As well as celebrating it in church, you are also invited to come and make Advent wreaths at the church. Some of you have already signed up for that event. If you have not, it's not too late. You can just come on Sunday at 10:30 to the church, and we will be making Advent wreaths outside on the church lawn. We also have an upcoming Zoom. December 13th will be our next Zoom. And that one, we are going to meet Miss Cecily. She is our new music person at the church. And I thought it's time for you to meet her since we're not gathering at the church and you didn't get to meet her when we sing songs. We might even try singing a song together on the Zoom, but I'm not exactly sure. But you are going to get to meet Miss Cecily on December 13th at 10:30 via Zoom. Again, we have 3 ways to worship. One is our YouTube service. One is our 8 a.m. communion on the lot service. And our third way is our 9:30 sanctuary service where you must wear masks and you must socially distance. I have gathered some sticks for today's lesson. Sometimes we use sticks to pretend they're swords, but we have to be careful that we don't poke anyone. We might use sticks as a walking stick when we're on a hike. But often we use sticks to start a fire. These little sticks like this, they're great to start a fire with. And oftentimes you have to make them smaller. You put them in a fire pit, you start the fire, and maybe you've even cooked a meal over your fire, or hot dogs, or maybe you've just had a toasted marshmallow or a roasted marshmallow or a s'more over the fire. But there's lots and lots of things that we can cook over a fire. I'm going to put my sticks right here so we kind of can still see them, hopefully, in the video. What is your favorite food? It doesn't have to be a food that you cook over the fire. Think about that. Back in the Bible times, the fire was the only place for them to cook their meals, over a fire. That was how they got heat. They didn't have stoves like we have. They didn't have microwaves or ovens. They just had the fire. So they would often cook their meals over a fire. They would even be able to do some baking with fire in the bottom of what they probably maybe called an oven. I'm not really sure. But what is your favorite food? It might be pizza, it might be chicken nuggets or chicken fingers, it might be spaghetti, it might be some kind of tacos, it might be mac and cheese, it might even be ice cream or chocolate chip cookies. I love chocolate chip cookies. I don't think I'd say it's my favorite food, but I do love my sweets. If you had a bowl or a plate of your favorite food, and you love that favorite food, would you share it with someone that maybe didn't have any food? We are going to meet someone in our story, and she is a widow. A widow is someone that is a woman who was married, but her husband had died. So she is now a widow. That is what a widow is. And we're going to meet this widow who only had a very, very small amount of supplies to make a small amount of food for her and her son. I want you to listen to the story to see what happens to her supplies and the amount of food she can make. I want you to think about that and listen for that as we read. Let's fold our hands and close our eyes. Dear God, help us to share with hungry people. Help us to share and care for others. Help us to trust you to fill our plates full. Amen. Today's story is in the book of 1 Kings. I'm going to be reading from the actual Bible, but if you do have a Spark Story Bible at home, it is in here. The story is called Elijah and the Widow. And so if you have this Bible at home and you want to read it from there instead, that's fine. But this week I'm going to decided to read from the actual Bible, and I'm going to look at 1 Kings. It's right after 2 Samuel. We were in 1 Samuel last week. So now we're jumping ahead into the Bible a little bit deeper into 1 Kings, and it's chapter 17, verses 8 through 16. Then the word of the Lord came to him. Go at once to Zarephath of Sidon and stay there. I have commanded a widow in the place to supply you with food. So he, and when they say he, they mean Elijah, went to Zarephath. When he came to the town gate, a widow was there gathering sticks. See, we hear about our sticks that I had gathered. He called to her and asked, "Would you bring me a little water in a jar so I may have a drink?" As she was going to get it, he called, "And bring me, please, a piece of bread." "As surely as the Lord your God lives," she replied, "I don't have any bread, only a handful of flour in a jar and a little oil in a jug. I'm gathering a few sticks to take home and make a meal for myself and my son, that we may eat and die." During this time, before I continue reading at verse 13, during this time there was a famine going on and they didn't have a lot to eat. So this woman only had a little tiny bit of flour and a little bit of oil, just enough, and she was gathering some water, I believe, and some sticks so that she could go home and make a small amount of bread for her and her son to just get a little bit more to eat before they figured that they would die because they didn't have anything else to eat. I'm going to continue reading at verse 13. Elijah said to her, "Don't be afraid. Go home and do as you have said. But first, make a small cake of bread for me from what you have and bring it to me. Then make something for yourself and your son. For this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. The jar of flour will not be used up and the jug of oil will not run dry until the day the Lord gives rain on the land." She went away and did as Elijah had told her. So there was food every day for Elijah and for the woman and her family. For the jar of flour was not used up and the jug of oil did not run dry, in keeping with the word of the Lord spoken by Elijah. It's a pretty amazing thing that I'm sure all of your parents or grandparents, if they do baking or cooking, at some point they've looked in their cupboard for something and they didn't have it. At my house, I do that often. And I have some great neighbors that I will either go next door and knock on the door, or I'll send a text and say, "Hey, do you happen to have a teaspoon of vanilla? Do you have a quarter cup of flour?" And they do it to me too. And so we share ingredients sometimes because we forgot to buy it at the grocery store. But here there was no more. She didn't have any more flour. She couldn't just run to the store to get more. But she followed Elijah and it just kept replenishing somehow because of God, because God kept providing. Which is pretty amazing. So not only did God provided that, but then she shared her food with others and with Elijah. We all just got done celebrating Thanksgiving. And this year it may have looked or felt a little different. Maybe you didn't go to the house that you usually go to for Thanksgiving because there were going to be too many people, so everybody celebrated in a different way. Maybe you ate your meal outside so that you could spread out more. Maybe you Zoomed on a phone or a computer or iPad or some kind of device so that you could visit with your family but still stay safe. Some of you may have had Thanksgiving just like you always do. Everybody was doing something different, but I bet you still shared a Thanksgiving meal with some family. And I bet you enjoyed it. I'm sure the food was yummy. And I bet you still gave thanks, even though maybe there were some people that you would have liked to have together, but you couldn't. As we move from the Thanksgiving season into the Christmas season, I'm going to tell you that I want you to remember that not everybody has enough food to eat and enough for them in their house. Just like the widow in our story, she only had a small amount, but God provided for her. We can help people. We can kind of help provide for people too. I encourage you and your family during this Christmas season to find some way to help some people in need. There's lots of different ways you can do this. I'm not going to tell you you have to do one or the other because it's all whatever you and your family decide. Maybe you already did this. I know the church, you always in past years had an angel tree. We did not do that this year. However, we do have something called Food on the 4th each Sunday. And this has been going on for a long time. But I wanted you to be aware that, and I'm going to show you, I took a picture of the Food on the 4th container, and you can see that now. And you can actually put food in there any Sunday of the month or any day of the week. But right now, we always have it sitting right there where you see it sitting, and it says Food on the 4th. And on the 4th Sunday of the month, they emphasize that it's Food on the 4th because it's the 4th Sunday of the month. And they encourage people to bring a canned good or some kind of non-perishable food item. That means it doesn't go bad. It doesn't get yucky. And put it in the box. And then that is taken to a local food bank or food pantry. There's other things you can do. You could find an angel tree somewhere else. I happened to be somewhere at a store and they actually had an angel tree outside their store as you went in. If you are out and about shopping, there's lots of places. If you look on the internet, I'm sure you could find some way to help someone locally. But I encourage you during this Christmas season, when a lot of us are making lists of all the things we have to do and the hustle and the bustle, is to kind of sit back as a family and talk about how can we help someone in need. I think that's very important during this Christmas season. I would like you to get your pamphlet so that you can take a look at it with me. If you have the bigger pamphlet, here we have the story that it always kind of retells the story a little bit. You can put your sticker here. On the inside, here it even talks about how you can help people, and you could send something to the military. It talks about having a friend over for dinner. That might not work right now because of COVID, the same as sharing a snack. But something I thought of is there's some people probably in your life, and not necessarily that they are in need of food, but that maybe you're not seeing as much. And I think it would be neat for you to share something with them. You could drop something off on their porch. And even make them a card just to say, hey, we're thinking about you and we miss seeing you. I think this one is a lot of fun. It's some math facts. And what you do, this first one, it's 1 + 5. So what is your answer? Hopefully you said 6. So there's a 6 and the 6 is in the red. So I would color that first section red. So you have to color, it's kind of color by number after you do the math. And then the back, it talks about food banks. And Berks County does have a food bank locally. It's called Helping Harvest, as well as Fleetwood also has a food pantry as well. So both are local, and I'm sure could find things online to find out how you can donate to them if you want to donate food directly to them, or if you want to just bring it and put it in the Food on the 4th container, that's fine too. The other pamphlet, that's for my older kids, the smaller pamphlet. This is a story about a famine, a little bit more current. It was in 2009 in an African nation. So you can read about that famine. So famine isn't something that only happened long ago. It can happen now. On the inside, it has a fire because it kind of has a fire in the oven. And if you look, you can see words in there. So you need to find the words. And then you always have your fun facts, your faith on the go. And this piece is a story wheel, and if you look, and it will help you read and understand the whole story. So I hope you enjoyed Sunday school this week. And I know it was a little different. We didn't really do a full activity, but my activity in my mind is that you help and decide on someone to help that is in need, whether it be make a card. I know Keystone Villa, I'm sure, always accepts cards. You could make some just cards to give to the senior citizens at the any retirement community. If you call them, I'm sure they have a way that you can drop them off, and you're not allowed to go in the buildings, but if you set up a time, I'm sure that's another way you could help. So figure out with your family how you can help someone. Maybe your family has already figured that out for this season and it's something you do yearly. So I encourage you to do that. As you think about that, I want you to remember that God used Elijah and the widow to teach us that we can trust God and to share what we have. And that is so important because that widow trusted what Elijah was saying, and it was God that was telling Elijah to say that. So she trusted him and said, okay, he says that I'm going to have enough supplies. And she did. So there was trust there. And then she was able to share what she made. Let's fold our hands and close in prayer. Dear God, thank you for keeping your promise and filling jars to the very top with flour and oil. Thank you for filling our lives with blessings. Help us to trust you and share what you give us. Amen. I hope you have a wonderful week. I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and we will do Sunday school again next week. Bye.